Hey everyone, and a very warm welcome to this explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me today. We're going to unpack a really fascinating piece of source material. It's essentially this highly intentional, structured biblical framework designed specifically to tackle worry and, quiet down an anxious mind. If you're someone who appreciates seeing how concepts are built, literally architected to create a specific emotional shift, you're going to absolutely love the progression we're looking at today. We're going to break down exactly how this framework takes a chaotic, noisy mind and carefully guides it right toward peace.
Okay, let's dive into this. Are your thoughts currently racing with a million what-ifs about tomorrow? The source material we're analyzing starts exactly here, using what it calls an empathetic hook. It doesn't kick off with some heavy lecture or super dense theology. No, instead, it starts by directly and immediately acknowledging that very real physical tension of a racing brain. It meets the person seeking relief exactly where they are, right in that intense moment of stress.
So there's a really stark contrast at play here. On one side, we have the core problem, right? Those racing thoughts and that exhausting, endless cycle of what-ifs about the future. But the intended solution is all about letting go and finding stillness in a safe space. The framework we're exploring deliberately and methodically moves the listener away from that state of panic on the one hand and gently guides them right into that safe space of stillness on the other.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks this transition down into a very specific architectural four-step progression to quiet the mind. We've got step 1, an empathetic hook. Step 2, an opening prayer. Step 3 focuses on Matthew chapter 6. And finally, step 4, Psalm 121.
Moving right along to step 2, we have the prayer, acknowledging the racing mind.
Before the actual prayer even starts, the source instructs the speaker to address the listener as beloved. It just offers this profound, immediate sense of unconditional acceptance. Then, it explicitly asks God to quiet those exact racing thoughts we talked about earlier. The primary function of this opening prayer is incredibly strategic. It acts as an active, verbal plea to silence the mind before any extended scripture is even introduced. It acknowledges the noise, asks for it to be cleared away, and basically preps the mental runway. That way, the words to follow can actually land and be absorbed, rather than just bouncing right off an overwhelmed brain.
All of that preparation leads us perfectly into step 3, the teachings of Jesus in Matthew 6. And actually, honoring the framework of our source material, I'm going to intentionally start slowing down my pacing right here. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. The source gives a very specific direction for this part. It requires a slow, rhythmic reading. The whole design here is to let the deliberate, unhurried pace of these words physically counter the fast, chaotic racing of an anxious mind.
So the crucial point is that the core themes of these verses center entirely around a single powerful command: do not worry. It's really about actively letting go of tomorrow's what-ifs and forcing a gentle focus back onto the present moment. And psychologically speaking, forcing that gentle focus back to the present acts as an absolute circuit breaker for an anxious brain. Just think about how cleverly this is structured. These verses are deployed to directly counter and dismantle the exact what-ifs established back in the empathetic hook. The problem was identified in step 1, and now this step provides the direct philosophical and spiritual antidote.
Which brings us to our final textual anchor, step 4, assurance and protection through Psalm 121.
Having just administered that antidote in Matthew, the strategy shifts profoundly here. This brilliantly illustrates the move from instruction to pure comfort. The source explicitly calls for a gentle reading to reinforce reassurance and safety, specifically highlighting the core thematic phrase, "The Lord watches over you." So the goal of this fourth step is no longer to teach or command, but simply to reinforce that reassurance and safety. It essentially wraps the listener in a blanket of security over their newly quieted mind.
And that brings us to the conclusion: a soft music fade out to black. Notice how incredibly intentional this is. The framework explicitly ends not with more words, not with a final summary, and definitely not with a loud call to action. Instead, it ends with a gentle absence of stimulation. By utilizing this soft music fade-out, it seamlessly completes the guided journey, dropping the listener off perfectly into a restful, uninterrupted silence.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one final thought. How will you let go of tomorrow's what-ifs and find stillness tonight?
Whether you apply this exact text or maybe just borrow its brilliant psychological architecture, acknowledging anxiety, seeking quiet, focusing on present truths, and wrapping yourself in reassurance, there is a truly profound power in structuring your piece. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this. Be well, and I hope you find your stillness.